everyone. Welcome to AWE EU 2022. It's great to see everyone's faces. My name is Sam Sprigg. I am the managing editor of Auganix. We are a VR and AR news and intelligence website. And I'm joined here by Kasper Tiri from Ready Player Me, who I'm sure you all know.
Hey everyone, good morning. Glad to see everyone here so early. I'm Kaspar. I'm one of the co-founders of Ready Player Me. For those who don't know what Ready Player Me is, it's a cross-game avatar platform where we've connected over 4,000 different games and apps, giving people a consistent identity they can use across all of those different experiences.
What we want to do today is essentially a fireside chat. Like, this is going to be a very casual, open conversation. So if at any point anyone has any questions, please feel free to put your hands up. I mean, Kasper's here, very knowledgeable, and I'm sure everyone does have lots of questions. Ready Player Me, obviously an incredible platform. So yeah, it would be great to get some audience participation involved. But we're going to be talking about interoperability and the importance of that. So I guess I'll kick things off. What does interoperability mean to you, Kaspar? And just explain a bit about that.
All right. So for me personally, interoperability is more around like the mindset of being like open and collaborative. There's a lot of different like definitions out there about like what it actually means, but by and large, it's more around like the philosophy of how we can do things like what we do in Ready Player Me, which is like giving users a consistent identity, a consistent avatar that they can use across all of those different games, so they can wear different assets across all of those different games. But what it also means is it allows brands to collaborate with a larger audience of developers and developers to collaborate with each other. There's a number of different like kind of like issues and things that we need to go through when we think about interoperability. The main conversation we usually end up having is around standards. Especially because the gaming industry, not the best industry when we think about standards in general. Like different gaming engines have their own rendering pipelines, they're supporting different asset formats and so on. But that indeed is a really important topic because the way we've seen the industry evolving, like even if you think like 10, 20 years ago, every game studio had their own engine, a proprietary engine, and now we're kind of like we have Unity, we have Unreal, we have Godot, and we have like, there's a smaller number of engines, and it's easier for developers to start working on their products. So basically, by working on the standard aspect of things, you're lowering the barrier to entry, which means more and more smaller studios, independent creators can build impactful products because the cost of building it is much lower. So it's a pretty long answer to a very short question about interoperability. But yeah, in general, for me, it means the mindset and philosophy of how we're thinking about working and collaborating together, and how we should think about like open economies and stuff like this.
So why would something like an open economy in whatever platform you're using, why would that be important? Like, in the context of immersive technology, what are the sort of the key important points that we have to kind of think about and address when it comes to building things that are interoperable and open? Yes.
So there's several ways to think about this. There is the technical and development aspect of things. Imagine every developer needing to build their own custom engine. Probably pretty expensive, and most of us here would be like, yeah, don't want to invest $500,000 into building my own engine. So I'm not going to build my creation or idea. So it's just like the cost aspect of things. The more you can work on standards, the more you can use on common formats, the easier it is for someone to build the application they intend to build. So again, you have like smaller, mid-sized studios, independent creators, being able to build much impactful products. Even on the animation side, you have like it's not the standard, but like most commonly used animation libraries like Mixama, which is again to a certain degree it helps developers save time. For me personally, the more interesting aspect is the economic aspect. That's also like one of the biggest counter arguments about like why something like this would never happen, because Epic Games with Fortnite open up because they're creating decent amount of money. And that might be true for the top 1%. They probably don't want to open up, at least in short term. But if you think about like how their business works, is with the closed economy, something like Fortnite, the way the economy works is you only do single-sided transactions. Epic sells end user a skin, and the amount of users they have, the amount of revenue they can make. Every time they make a new skin, that's the new part of revenue. So you only can make the amount of money, the amount of users you have, and you sell it one time to that particular user. If you think about like an open economy, then you have more nodes part of the network. What I mean by this is it's not a single-sided transaction anymore, it's multi-sided transaction. Because in open economy, there's more nodes. And by nodes, again, I mean like you have a game developer, you have the user, you have, let's say, an investor, a collector, an artist, a brand, another developer, all making transactions among others. So imagine me buying a skin from Fortnite, selling it to another user, then selling it to a collector who sells it to an investor, who sells it to a brand. And every time there's a transaction happening, so in general, the GDP of the economy gets larger. And in those scenarios, the pie gets bigger. Now, if the pie is bigger, you have more money going in. So now you're not talking only about like how many users the game X has, it's how many users the economy, how many users are participating in the economy. So you're not anymore thinking about like what do we have, like like let's say the game has like 2 million users, right? You're not talking about the 2 million users the game has. You're talking about the entire population who's participating in the economy, and they don't have to be gamers anymore. So you're making the pie bigger. And in this scenario, there's very interesting business models through how companies can make money through royalties. Like I always bring this is my favorite example. Long time ago, like 2-3 years ago, we started working with a company called Artifact. They're this, how do we call it, like bottoms-up NFT Web3 brand. They've never sold basically anything. But they're making like 500 million revenue in a month. How? Through royalties. So they built a very strong strong brand with a very strong and loyal user base. And they were giving away those assets for free. And everybody, obviously there's a limited amount of assets that they had. So what happened was like everybody wanted to participate in this economy by owning the asset from that particular brand. So they started buying in. Every time there was a transaction, that Artifact made like 10% from royalties. And there were so many different transactions happening every day on and all of the money came from this. So it's a shift in terms of mindset. And those users were not only the users who just loved NFTs. There were brands who were participating. There were companies who were participating. There were just regular curious people. And obviously there's like this Web3 loyalists who were just like there from the get-go. But it's a good example of how opening up and how thinking from the business model's perspective completely differently can change the way we build things. Again, it doesn't necessarily have to be NFTs. It can be like NFTs are just like, it's just one example of this. You can just do it without any blockchain as well.
So you mentioned economy is, the economics as a key driver of what is going to create this interoperability, right? How do you prevent that from becoming the only driver? Like, what's in it for someone who's not necessarily in it for the money? Say it's like an indie dev who's not really there to make big bucks. They are there for the community. Like, what are the challenges around kind of preventing, essentially these, turning something into a big corporation's kind of cash grab or whatever? Like, how do you kind of prevent that? And what is another driver other than the economics that makes it worthwhile?
I think in general, it's just the mindset in like I mentioned, like when I think about interoperability, it's like openness, collaborations, and so on. There's a certain aspect of fighting against the big giants as well. I'm not gonna lie here, because the ones that would benefit the most from open economy, at least in short term, would be like 99% of the developers, not the top 1%. And again, there's this economic aspect of why something like this would be beneficial for independent developer. There is this collaboration aspect. So it's like for independent creator A and independent creator B, by using things that they can interact with or collaborate on, it just like makes their if they were to use standards, they can collaborate more. Let's say building the bridge between two different games, a shooter game and meeting up, like what we see today happening a lot with Ready Player Me is there's so many cross usage. So imagine a VR meeting user. So this is something to see quite often. Like someone who's a VR meeting user, they use it for the business. So they do business meetings in VR. But when they get home in the evening, well, they're still like interested in the metaverse concept and they're gamers by heart. So they would go and play another game. So sure. Now that particular user, because they have defined their identity already, you have like the user movement from game A to game B, which means for this independent creator, it's like easier to capture users. It's also easier for them to collaborate with let's say, with the VR meeting solution, because they know that a lot of their users, let's say, come from there, so they can build portals and they collaborate. And there's like a long list of things how it would make the industry more collaborative rather than like, let's build walls and, all live in our own small bubbles.
Maybe we can question if somebody like to talk or some questions for our speakers, ideas, questions.
Any
Nobody?
questions so far? By show of hands, actually, how many
Yes.
people here are developers?
Yes, please. Oh,
Okay.
okay. And how many people have an avatar? Ready Player Me avatar? Oh, pretty good. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Then I think that we can start to provide tips with our audience. What is in real collaboration about interoperability and no? What do you think?
I was going to ask, in terms of your experience at Ready Player Me, like what are some of the challenges you guys have faced in terms of pushing your platform? Obviously, it's an incredible platform, and you have thousands of compatibilities with various other platforms, right? But what have been some of the challenges you have found as a company in trying to advocate for why people should use your solution?
That's a good question. What are some of the challenges? I guess, like from taking a step back, it's always like avatars are such complicated things to build, and it's a core part of the product. So the first kind of challenge for us always is to make sure that the product is 10 times better than what someone else can build internally. Yeah. I think from the larger perspective, it's like we have a lot of conversations about standards, and again, I come back to the same topic. I think we're very well positioned to build something that's like could be adopted on larger scale and in a more collaborative manner rather than us building something that everybody is using it. And we're already taking this step further by like if you look at how we're designing our product, like the file format we use is GLTF, which is a kind of like a standard that's being built by the Kronos group, and we're trying to rely on a lot of the things that already are there as a foundation. The way we're like, we just recently launched our Avatar API, which is again like a step towards like opening up, showing that like we don't want to control any piece of your experience with Avatar API. Like what changes for a lot of the developers that are using Ready Player Me is like in the future building their own native avatar editors. It's a dynamic avatar creator, which means like wherever the user basically customizes the avatar, we can load your avatar in a game. It doesn't matter if the user didn't create the avatar in a game, we can still load the avatar in your game dynamically. So it just like opens up more and more. so we can build those collaborations. We're thinking, we're open sourcing this quarter a lot of the things that we built from the SDKs and so on to make sure that we build the trust. I think that the hardest challenge obviously for something like this, what we're grading is like building the trust and showing like we're not here to build just another platform. We're here to actually, personally really try to change the way things have been done for a long time. It also comes from our company values, the way we've designed that, that the core mission for us is to break down the walls. You can't break the walls. You can't break you can't break down the walls by building those virtual walls yourselves. When we made like a couple of months ago a decision that we should kind of like we like Mixamo animations, but we get often and often from the developers that they want to have like more higher quality animation libraries. So we made an investment to kind of build an animation library ourselves. But our intention is not to keep it ourselves. And the intention is, again, like the same way we've designed Ready Player Me, to give it away for developers for free. So we can introduce more people into this new mindset of why don't we think openly, why don't we collaborate more with each other?
How do you think governing bodies, say, for example, the Kronos Group, but I mean, we're here in Europe, obviously the European Union and the regulations that come with that, we've just seen that they've announced that Apple have to use USB-C chargers, for example. Like, how do you think governing bodies such as these large organizations, whether they are setting standards or they are governmental bodies in themselves, how do you think they are pushing for, mandatory interoperability functionality? Like, is there anything in, Ready Player Me's roadmap that you're kind of having to account for, or do you see that being a thing even? Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I have a personal opinion. It's not something that I don't know if we feel as a company. My personal opinion is I just don't think that they will have a very big impact. It's just like there's so much under the hood when we think about the gaming industry and the standards. Like it's always very funny to go online and see where like there's like I call them like the Web3 enthusiasts who talk about interoperability. Like let's take Fortnite skins and take them to Call of Duty, and you're like, actually, it's not that simple. Yeah. There's a lot there that why this probably would never happen, especially from the technical and the economics perspective. And those are people who are like really invested in the space. The government bodies usually are like a lot of years behind on the technology aspect of things, and like what we're discussing here and what how games are built, like it's such a complicated topic that I just can't see how a governmental body could have a strong impact, rather than like, hey guys, like collaborate with each other, and people are like, no, we don't want to, or yes, we should.
Sure, no, it makes sense. It makes sense that the governments would be playing catch up to the community, I guess. We have about 3 minutes left. I don't know if there are any questions.
Questions?
Kaspar.
Comment, please.
Do you see any other efforts from other avatar frameworks also to open up to build up interoperability regarding avatar?
Yeah. I'm not sure when it comes to opening up. Like, I mean, like Meta has their, Oculus avatars. Not very open. They're open in the Oculus ecosystem. I don't think they have like intention to open it up, and I feel like it's like for every, like when you're a public company, there's certain things you just can't do in short term. Even if let's say even if Zuckerberg really wants to open up, it's not the good business case for him in short term. And he just can't do those things. If you think about our, so to speak, competitors who are out there, like Meta and Snap with Bitmoji out there, they are all mostly designed for, as a complement for their platform, so it would benefit the platform more. If that's made by design, opening up would go against their own, philosophy. So to answer your question, short term, I don't think it will happen.
But
It will happen when there's a new company that comes in space and starts opening up as well.
That's clear about the big players with their own platforms, but I'm talking about like players like you. Are there any more participants that are pushing?
Oh, like who are your competitors, I guess?
Yeah, there are more companies that you
Yeah, so there's Genies, who's from LA, not opening up. They have a very specific, philosophy and the way they built their own brand. There was Altered, they got acquired, so don't really know what's going to happen with them. They got acquired by one very big player, so there's your answer. There are, I'm sure there's some companies in the stealth mode that I'm not really aware of. Even games are collaborating besides avatars, right? They're collaborating on the environment aspect, like the same kind of logic that we do by sharing the same standards and so on. We just do the avatar, we're like identity infrastructure layer. There's so much more the developers can do to collaborate with each other, to build those standards that a lot of companies are doing that. But from the avatar's perspective, right now I don't know anyone else who's building, and that's kind of like our unique proposition as well, like the openness factor and being willing to collaborate and being willing to be open. It is a different shift. It is especially when we initially shared this concept with our first customers, when we started building Ready Player Me, it wasn't easiest thing to buy into. Now it's more obvious because there's like over 4,000 companies using it. But in the beginning, people are like, why should I do that? Like, it's my user.
And also it was really easy to use your platform. I think that also maybe we have more and more competitors that they are providing and creating avatars. But your avatars, they're really easy and easygoing, and it's a lot of behind and all of the stuff that you are doing really well. Thank you everybody. Thank you for being here, and thank you Sam Sprigg and Kasper Tiri. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.